On November 24th, 2014, Sony Pictures Entertainment was hacked by a group calling themselves the Guardians of Peace. They didn't just leak a few embarrassing emails, oh no, they dropped mountains of data. Employee pay, private communication, screenplays, even full unreleased movies. United States intelligence agencies later concluded the hack was state-sponsored by North Korea. Why? To protest The Interview, a comedy starring James Franco and Seth Rogen, where two journalists are recruited by the CIA to assassinate Kim Jong-un. The fallout was massive. Sony's reputation took a hit. Their stock wobbled, and the studio ultimately caved, pulling The Interview from a wide theatrical release and dumping it online with a limited theater run. Cowards.
You're a pack of fools!
But buried beneath the chaos of this cyber attack was an unexpected tragedy, the premature ending of Andrew Garfield's run as Spider-Man. And to understand why any of this is connected, we've got to backtrack and look at the troubled history of the Amazing Spider-Man series. Before that, make sure you like and subscribe for more of this kind of content. It really helps me out in the algorithm. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy was a cultural juggernaut. These movies didn't just impress audiences. They helped prove superheroes could dominate the box office years before the MCU was even a thing. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker remains a fan favorite, and Spider-Man 2 is still held up as one of the best superheroes ever made. Personally, I think the first one is the best, and 3 is actually pretty good. There's your hot take for the day. So when Sony rebooted Spidey just 5 years after Spider-Man 3, a lot of people were asking, really, already? Originally there were plans for Spider-Man 4 with Tobey and Raimi, but after delays and creative clashes, Sony pulled the plug. Instead, they handed the reins to director Mark Webb, fresh off his indie rom-com 500 Days of Summer, which happens to be one of my favorite movies. It's a lot of fun. Andrew Garfield was cast as Peter Parker, calling the role every skinny boy's dream. Emma Stone came on as Gwen Stacy, completely unaware that her character was Peter's original comic book love interest, not Mary Jane. And Rhys Ifans played Dr. Kurt Connors, aka the Lizard. I'm not embarrassed to say I had to look up how that was pronounced.
Rhys Ifans.
Ifans later described his set costume as a green leotard with a cardboard head and tiny claws. I looked like a crash test dummy, which is very funny to imagine. The Amazing Spider-Man premiered in Tokyo, of all places, on June 13, 2012. And it was a hit. Critics praised Garfield and Stone's chemistry. The performances felt fresh, and for its time, the CGI was impressive. This wasn't just a retread of Raimi's work. Garfield's Peter was snarkier, quippier, a lot more in line with comic book Spider-Man's personality. But he still carried that emotional weight from Uncle Ben's death that was captured so well in the Raimi trilogy. This time the trauma was over Peter's parents, who went missing when he was a child. But of course, not everyone was sold. As always, there are naysayers. Some fans thought rebooting so soon was unnecessary, and Sony's marketing, which pushed this untold story tagline, promised mysteries about Peter's parents that the movie never fully delivered on. Still, the film made money and set the stage for a sequel, and that's where things got sticky. For the sequel, Sony went big. Jamie Foxx joined as Electro, Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn, Paul Giamatti as the Rhino, Felicity Jones as Felicia Hardy, and BJ Novak as Alistair Smythe. If that sounds like a lot of characters to pack into one film, it was. Sony wanted Amazing Spider-Man 2 to be a springboard for their own cinematic universe. A Sinister Six movie, spin-offs, basically a Sony version of the MCU. The result? A bloated mess of a movie that lost its focus. Peter and Gwen's story was compelling, but it kept getting sidelined by franchise setup. The comparisons to the MCU didn't help, which was putting out bangers like The Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy 1. It was deja vu. Just like Raimi's Spider-Man 3, studio meddling shoved too many villains and too many plot lines into one movie. To make matters worse, entire subplots were cut, such as Mary Jane Watson, who was filmed with Shailene Woodley, but eventually completely scrapped. Even Electro's design sparked debate. Glowing CGI blue men with dubstep powers instead of his classic green and yellow look. The reviews were mixed. The box office was underwhelming, and suddenly Sony had a problem. They'd just spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a franchise Kickstarter that didn't actually kickstart anything. Whoopsies. And then came the Guardians of Peace hack. Leaked emails will reveal just how heavily Sony executives had micromanaged the creative process of the Amazing Spider-Man films. The writers and directors were pressured to prioritize franchise building over storytelling. Andrew Garfield himself was reportedly very frustrated working under those conditions. But the biggest bombshell of the hack? Speaking of animal-themed heroes, the first 2 issues of my crowd-funded comic, Br'er Rabbit in the Jazz Age, is available to purchase. Follow a trickster shaman in a battle against the Ku Klux Klan at the height of their tyranny. Visit the link in the description, and while you're down there, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more comics content. Sony was in talks with Marvel to bring Spider-Man into the MCU. Suddenly, Garfield's future was in question. Fans were divided. Some wanted Andrew in the MCU. Others begged for Tobey's return. And plenty were excited to get a fresh new Spider-Man altogether. Amid the chaos, bad press, and poor financial return, Sony decided to cut ties with the Amazing Spider-Man series. They rebooted yet again, this time with Marvel Studios' input. And so Tom Holland was brought on as the new Peter Parker, molded specifically to fit within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, The Amazing Spider-Man's run ended not with a bang, but an email leak. And honestly, at the time I was not devastated. I thought the Amazing Spider-Man films were alright, but kinda messy, and they were still completely overshadowed by Raimi's Fantastic Trilogy. Considering the explosive popularity of Spider-Man in the MCU and how well his series has been received, maybe this was for the best. And then years later came the multiversal crossover, Spider-Man No Way Home. In this movie, all the Spider-Men meet and battle against villains from across each series. In one of the highlight scenes of the movie, Garfield's Peter saves MJ from a deadly fall, redeeming his failure to save Gwen. It's the emotional highlight of the movie, and Garfield nails it. That scene gave fans a newfound appreciation for his version of Spider-Man. There was a renewed interest of people clamoring for The Amazing Spider-Man 3. It's ironic, really. An international hacking campaign led us not just to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but it set the stage for Andrew Garfield's redemption years later. Thank you, Kim Jong-un. Very cool of you. Today, Sony is still struggling to get their Spider-Verse without Spider-Man going. It's, obviously not going well. But Garfield's Spider-Man arc proves no version of Spider-Man is truly gone, as long as fans are still interested. I love these weird little domino effects in pop culture. How one unexpected event completely reshapes the landscape and causes completely unrelated consequence down the line. If you want another story like this, check out my video on how Hamburger Helper indirectly led to Sam Raimi making Spider-Man. Like and subscribe for more content. Support an indie creator by grabbing a copy of Br'er Rabbit in the Jazz Age. Read my shorter comics on Global Comics for free. Join the Discord for more discussions. And throw me a few bones on Ko-Fi. It'll help keep me off the streets. I'm King Rex, your favorite hacker in service of the great leader. And as always, keep on reading.